Hello and welcome to the second episode in this 15-minute chess lesson series. And today we'll cover open files. So I'll go over two games. The first one is played in 1974 with Ulf Andersson having the white pieces and Reinier Knaak with the black pieces. And these are both 2,500 rated players. It was played in 1974 at the Jose Capablanca Memorial Tournament. So if you stick around for the second game, that will actually feature Capablanca, who was a great chess endgame expert, all-around great player, the third world chess champion, and definitely one of the greatest players of all time. So let's begin here and try and keep this under 15 or at 15 minutes. So Ulf Andersson begins with knight to f3. His opponent copies his moves. And they kind of continue this a little bit here. So they're both just developing. And if we look at the position, it ends up being a mirror type position here. So check this out. Right now, both players have kind of mirrored each other. So we have castling here. And now Andersson jumps up with his knight to c3, but his opponent discontinues this copying maneuver or mirroring with knight to e3. So now if the knight captures, the bishop could capture the white bishop here and end up attacking the rook. So we have the queen moving up into the position, helping guard everything, and some exchanges begin here. So capturing. Now it looks like the computer preferred a capture here. Should have turned on the analysis here earlier. So now we have a confrontation here with these pawns in the center and onto the queen side here as well. So we have a capture towards the center, but the computer says that capturing away from the center first would have been better. And now white is slightly ahead here. So after capture, we have the queen capturing, although the computer wanted the queen to move over here and start attacking on the king side with the queen and knight. So now we have a knight developed finally off the back rank. And the fight for the open file here. So Ulf Andersson recognizes how important an open file can be in the endgame, and he immediately develops his rook attacking the queen. So the queen has to move over, and now Andersson moves his queen over to the king side, perhaps preparing to take advantage of these weak squares, these dark squares that are weakened now that the bishop is not covering them. So we have the rook moving over here, attempting to control this open C file, but the computer says it would have been better to immediately fight for the D file that white is already trying to gain control of. So the game continues with this move preparing possibly to double the rooks on the D file. Once again, the computer says that a better move would have been to move this queen up here to try and cause or begin threatening black's king side. So we have the king moving up to help prevent the queen from moving into the position, and Andersson doubles his rooks. So very important when you're trying to control open files and use open files. First, you want to take control of the file, and then you want to look for a point to jump into their position. Now, if the file is controlled by all of black's pieces, let's say if there were a pair of bishops here and they were helping defend this file, then the file may not do you any good if there's no way to penetrate or move into their position here. So let's see how this continues. The bishop retreats back here, and the computer doesn't like that move. It instead prefers the knight to jump back and guard this d7 square, which white is trying to use to take control of the 7th rank. Another key strategy when your rooks take control of the open files, if you can jump them up to your 7th rank, a lot of times you can create chaos and a lot of attacking chances aiming at all the pawns that are usually on your opponent's 2nd rank here. So we have an exchange, capture with check. The king does not move. Instead, this pawn blocks the attack of the queen. So the queen moves up here, and now it looks like there's a blunder by Anderson's opponent. Better would have been to move the queen up here and try and trade off some material, get those queens off the board. And now we have this. The key move, rook to d7, trying to take control of the 7th rank. And also, there's a threat here of capturing the e-pawn and a fork of the king and the queen. So this move is played to block that, although the computer actually prefers bishop to h3, attacking the queen here. So now we have the king capturing the bishop, and black is trying to get some kind of counterplay. He could have just moved his rook over here and tried to defend the pawn, but it would just end up leaving him with a very passive rook if he would have played rook to a8 to defend this pawn. Because then, while that rook is just playing defense, white has time to double his rooks up on the 7th rank, adding even more pressure to black's position. So, since the rook decided not to defend the pawn, white just goes ahead and snaps off that pawn. And now he has room to double his rooks here on the 7th. The pawn was also under attack by the queen here. So the pawn has just moved forward to defend. Although queen to c6 is preferred by the computer. So continuing on, this pawn just moves up. And, we have a little bit more maneuvering. Oh, and by the way, sorry, but at this point, black just resigned. So, why did he resign? He's only down 1 pawn, but, the game could have continued something like this. And now we have this very dangerous passed pawn that is covered by a rook, queen, both rooks on the 7th. So at this point, we just have resignation by black. He resigned earlier because he didn't want to play into this dreary defensive position. All right, to keep this moving along, I hope you enjoyed that one example of how to take control of the open file, move your rooks up to the 7th rank, and put a lot of pressure on your opponent. I won't go too much further into the analysis because I want to move on to the second example with Jose Capo. Oh, one other thing before I continue on. Take a look at how they played in this game. Ulf Andersson played at a 2550 level and his opponent at 2250. And it looks like 88.6 versus 81.6. And we did have that blunder, and both sides had some inaccuracies, mistakes, and misses. All right, on to the Capablanca game versus Savielly Tartakower, if I pronounced that correctly. And so now we'll go ahead and look at the review, Capablanca wins in this game, but he plays at a 96.1% accuracy versus 90.5. So pretty awesome by Capablanca. He had only 2 inaccuracies. His opponent only had 1, but 3 mistakes. All right, on to the game. So this game was played in 1924. Let's see, 1924 in New York. And Capablanca had the white pieces. So Capablanca begins with d4, a more strategic move, as opposed to e4, which is usually a little more tactical. So both sides just develop here. Now this is the Dutch defense with d4 and f5 usually played in the beginning, although the opponent started with e6. So interesting choice here, the Dutch defense, which kind of aims your pawns down towards your opponent's king side, and the pieces would like to funnel in behind. And maybe if black is not castling on the king side, although many times he does, you also may have the option to just start moving these pawns down and attacking white's king side. So the game continues with c4. Knight develops, bishop pins the knight to the queen. The pin is broken by the bishop, although the computer prefers a check here on white's king, which could be blocked by either the bishop or one of the knights. So now we have the knight jumping up towards the center, developing, and castling kingside by black. So now e3 is played, helping fortify the center, giving the white bishop, or excuse me, the light squared bishop of white's room to develop. And now we have this, preparing to fianchetto the bishop. So bishop to d3, bishop develops by black, aimed at the king side, which is where white castles. So now the queen moves over, where the queen could possibly slide down towards the king side and help in an attack here against white. So now the game continues with just developing by both sides. The queen is developed, although the computer prefers rook moving to this c file where the c pawn has already been pushed forward. So the knight finally jumps up here, which causes a series of exchanges here. And now Capablanca tries to gain space on the queen side and maybe get rid of this isolated weak pawn here. Well, let me go back here. So this bishop, which is fianchetto, decides to knock out the defensive knight, and we have an exchange. Now the queen is attacking the rook, so the knight moves forward, and we have a rook moving to this half open file. And let's see how the game continues. Black doubles up here, creating a battery of rook and queen, and white moves his queen over, lining up on this pawn, which the bishop is already aimed in that direction. So this is maybe to prevent this f-pawn from being able to push forward, because then you may have a possible attack here. So now this move is played. The rook swings up, looking for some kind of counterplay, maybe a possibility of moving here, attacking the queen. So the game continues with Capablanca playing f4, gathering more space on the king side. The knight jumps to the edge of the board, which would allow the c-pawn to move forward. Also, possibly putting pressure on this pawn with a possible d5 move by that pawn. So the queen moves over, helping to cover this, in case of a possible pawn push here. Then we would have capture, capture, the queen would capture with check. So now this move is played d6, and it looks like the computer prefers c5 here. So moving on, the rook moves in behind this e-pawn, which Capablanca is probably planning to push forward and maybe fight for control of this e-file. So some maneuvering by both sides. The pawn is pushed forward, an exchange, and now a battery of queen and rook trying to get some counterplay on this half-open e-file. All right, so I'll just move a little faster here because my 15 minutes are approaching here. So we have some exchanges. Finally, if we go back here, a few moves, finally we have an open file. So capture, capture, and an open e-file. But the queen is under attack here. So we have a capture, queen captures, rook captures, and pieces have been exchanged. Capablanca does not move his rook to the open e-file because black could just block him and contest this e-file. So instead, Capablanca tries to create weaknesses and open another file on the H file here. So the rook moves up. We have capture, pawn captures. Now the rook is protecting this pawn, but rook to h1. Now Capablanca moves over to the H file, knowing that if he tried to take control of the E file, well, there's a possibility that the king could just move up here and cover the E file. So he moves over to this distant open H file to make inroads into black's position. So the game continues with the king heading in that direction, but now we have the rook moving to the 7th rank and attacking the pawns. Instead of blocking with the rook to f7 here, the rook moves to c6, and the computer likes that best. So now we have the pawns moving forward, the knight repositions, and so a check by the knight. The king moves up, knight retreats, but the bishop knocks that knight out of there. And after the capture, we have a passed pawn by Capablanca. So the king moves over, and this is an interesting little sequence of events here by Capablanca. He allows the pawn to be captured and a check on the king. The king starts running. Now we have this rook just attacking another pawn here, but Capablanca starts running with his passed pawn. Capture, capture, and now the king is aiding in the promotion of this pawn, or the attempted promotion. So the king moves over to, and also there was a threat of a checkmate there. So rook to h8 would be checkmate. So the king moves over to stop that. But now we have check. The king is kind of trapped in the corner here. So now capture of this pawn. We have once again the rook moving up here to prevent a checkmate, and the king just picks this off. So rook moving here targeting the D pawn. The game continues with a check, and now the rook is behind the passed pawn here. So the pawn moves up with check, but if the rook captures here and there's an exchange, white will just pick this pawn off and help it run up to promotion. So the king blocks, but that allows Capablanca to pick off another pawn here. And so Capablanca is just in the lead, and the game goes a few more moves here. Black tries to hang on, but there's not much that he can do. Computer prefers a capture of this actually, but Capablanca is wanting to get these pawns mobilized. So rook behind the passed pawn, and now at this move here, Capablanca's opponent resigned. All right, let me finish this up. The game could have continued with rook to d4, but the pawn starts to run, and there's no way to stop these pawns. Capture, if he captures there, but now white is just winning. He can pick off this pawn and then use the king and rook to checkmate black. So another interesting example of how Capablanca was able to use those open files. And just remember, you want to try and control the open file, but then you must make sure that you're able to move into your opponent's position along that file. If they just guard the file, which would have been possible earlier in the game. Let's see here if we go back a few moves. So here, Capablanca wisely opened up the H file, because if he just tried to take control of the E file, the rook could block. Once the rook moved here, now if he tried to take control, the king could just move up and cover the squares that lead into black's position here. So Capablanca wisely opens up another file. Now the open H file is able to be used to his advantage, and he moves up to the 7th rank, and this led to a winning endgame. All right, well, I'll end it there because I'm trying to keep these lessons at 15 minutes. I hope you enjoyed both of these games that showed how to use open files to gain an advantage and try and move into your opponent's position and go for a win. So please like and subscribe if you haven't already to support the channel. Feel free to leave comments, suggestions, or requests of any chess material you would like to see in future lessons. Thank you for watching, and have a super chess day.